Hi, I was listening to a video this morning by a guy called, or his channel name on YouTube is Infinite Corridors, and he came up with this idea of the realm of dearth. And the idea is that he explains it a lot better than I could, but basically he's saying that this place that we live, we call it Earth, but in some ways it always seems like where we are is a process of everything slowly being eaten up or dying. And even though we have life here, it seems like there is a lot of death, like this whole place seems to be sort of revolving around the concept of death. And so he thought that basically the letter D was missing, and if you add the letter D to Earth, then you have dearth, which sort of means like a lack of things. He explains it way better than I could, but basically that was his idea, that we have this place that we call the Earth. It's lost its letter at the front, the D, that has disappeared. And I was playing with that idea in my mind, and I was thinking, why does it need to be that way, and why would the D have disappeared? And I was playing with different words in my mind, and I've had this idea in my mind for 3 or 4 years of life and how it seems so similar to live, and also the different words such as, you've got life, live. This isn't really a word, but let's just imagine you had life with a D on the end, lifed. You could almost say that that word is similar to lived. It's just a slightly different spelling. If you use the logic of life and live being very similar sort of concepts, then lived and lived could be similar concepts as well. But then what do we have here? We have a lot of evil sometimes. Some might say, some might speculate there's evil, but is it really evil? So is the a V, in some cases, can it be translated into an F instead? But if you actually look at these words in reverse, so instead of live, what if, or lived, what if you put it in reverse? In reverse you have devil. So it's just the same word but in reverse. So what are you doing when you're living here? If you're living here, are you really living with evil? Do you have to really be evil in order to live in this place? Or is evil the reverse, the opposite of living or live? So those are just sort of ideas that I've had in my mind for years, and I've sort of been tossing and turning with them, and they sort of felt quite right, but there was always something missing and I could never figure out what. But then after listening to this video this morning, I sort of put the two concepts together, and I thought, well, maybe you don't really have the devil, maybe you have the defil, which is sort of like, it's sort of like the devil, except instead of a V, in which case, in a V shape, it's like the verses, V for verses. You've got one side going down and one side going up, and on each side you've got like an opposition. So V is often in the middle of words, so it's in the middle of lived, it's in the middle of multiple different words, it's in the middle of certain virus that we've all heard about for a few years. It's in opposite, it produces opposition on both sides. So a V is like the verses, the left versus the right, the up versus the down, the red versus the blue, the positive versus the negative, and the V sits in the middle, and it's a point of balance in which the letter V is sort of like, it goes down and it goes up and it goes in both directions. That's just how it works for me. And I don't quite know how to explain it clearly in words, but it always sits in the middle. And when you see that V, to me, it sort of symbolically represents a kind of a versing of one side versus another. And that's what we have a lot of in this world and in this realm, I guess, is that we have a lot of, we always have to have one political party versus another, or one country versus another, or one group versus another. And we always have this kind of opposition. We have this yin and yang, and we have all different concepts of black versus white and different things. And there always seems to be two things, and they're always in opposition. But do we really want to live in opposition? So those are all interesting thoughts. Let's just put that all aside for now. And I'll just screw that up. Let's go back there. All right. So what if, I don't know how to explain this clearly, but the thoughts that were running through my mind was just playing with these words again. So you've got life, and then you have the earth, and we often talk about, life and death on this place. There's a lot of life and death in this world, but instead of life and death, what if it was life and dearth? So life, dearth, and so basically, yeah, that was just the word that popped into my mind when I was putting these words together. Life and death instead of life and death. Maybe that's more of a correct way of saying it. But is it life and death, or is it live and death? And so this D that has been gone missing when we say the word earth, and Infinite Corridors, he mentioned it should be dearth with a D. When you put these two words together, the D is no longer missing. You just see that it's actually in the middle. And so what we've done is we've split it out, and we've split it this word right in the middle into two, and we've say we lived on earth. And so the D has gone to the left-hand side and the earth is on the right-hand side. But maybe what we really did was we live on dearth. So that's all very, very interesting. But in Infinite Corridors' presentation, he basically said that dearth is a negative thing where everything is slowly entropy decaying from good until bad. Everything is like slowly dying. And so if you are living, then that's kind of like evil in some way, because you're sort of like, you have this versus, this opposition where you've got one side versus another, and that's the way that you live on dearth, is that you have this opposition and you have this kind of death process or dearth process where everything is eating each other and things just slowly kind of decay. And even though there are a lot of good people and good intentions and great ideas and great energy and things in this world, we find that in order to survive, unfortunately, we have to be eating other things, whether it's eating other animals or eating plants or eating something else. You could be totally vegan and do all of that, but you still have to eat something. And who's not to say that eating plants is not a bad thing? So eating plants could be just as bad as eating animals. Who's to say that it's worse or better, really? Who's to say that the plants don't have as much right to live as animals and other beings? How do we make that distinction? So anyway, that's going off topic, but everything has to eat something in order to survive, and not just something, but many things. Excuse me. So we have this kind of life and dearth process on this earth, or this dearth where we live, and the last word that I thought of this morning before I put this presentation together was, does it really have to be that way? Because was originally the earth or the dearth something else, and it's been flipped and mangled into this form? And the word I came up with was, rather than trying to sort of take the letters and let's just make that smaller. Rather than trying to take the letters and switch them around and put them in a mirror form of backwards and forwards, what if we actually played Scrabble with them, took the letters, and instead of earth, if you just play Scrabble and you turn the letters into heart, which multiple people have done before, I'm not the first person to think of that, but and then you take the word lifed, so this one from above, lifed, and then you mix them around and play Scrabble, play a game with that, you end up with field. So what if this place could actually be a heart field, or that's what it should ideally be? What if what we're really living in is a heart field? Or is that where we want to go? Is that our original place? Is that what this place should be? But instead of the heart field, we're currently living in life and dearth. But what we really want to get to is the heart field. Let's add it to the dictionary and hope that that comes true.